but it had so much factual information in it. And one of the items that's mentioned more than once is energy literacy. This is something that all of us need to know about, and it's terms. It's like EROI, E-R-O-I. It's like energy density, energy footprint. I'll go through this, but that's to me one of the really important things. And then toward the end, where it talks about, what's the term? Well, it's just renewable energy. When it talks about renewable energy, and it tells you all the problems of renewable energy and how, you know, can we get them online fast like that, just like to suddenly replace fossil fuel. All the things that they remind us of, we got to think about that. So a lot of it you may already know. And there are places within the content where I know that we repeat things, and I'm going to try to not do that as best I can. I'm going to refer back to things such as, remember when I gave the definitions of energy literacy? Well, that's applicable here, you know, things like that. So to try to save our time a little bit, because this is such a big book. Like we've been saying, we've been calling it.
We'll get into it.
Yeah, want me to stop? You want to wait? Let's do an introduction.
Yeah, I was going to say one thing. Is that published in 2012?
Yeah.
It's probably written in 2011. A lot of the information may have gotten together in 2010. So it's actually even older than that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. They should all get a book like that published. Well, okay, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I don't think I need
Can you step over in front of the camera? You can't talk off camera.
Like this?
Yeah, that's perfect.
No, not yet. He's got to turn the camera, sorry. No, never mind. We don't need a big introduction. We all know what we're doing here, right? Okay, I'm not going to introduce you like you're all new here. Have you been to one of these? Have you been to the Climate Change Forum?
Not this time. No.
Okay, then I'll
I've
start
missed
over.
several times. Yeah.
Okay. Today we're going to be discussing the energy overdevelopment and the illusion of endless growth. I always call it the big energy book, but this is its real name. It's presented by Lolly Tyndall and Alana Harrison. Okay. Shelley was supposed to be part of this forum, but she got called away Friday with her mother's very sick in Florida, so she took off. So she's very sorry not to be doing this today. We're meeting on today, which is an off-time meeting because we're catching up on the 3 meetings that we missed over the winter with all the bad weather. Next meeting, we'll be back on schedule on the first Sunday in May, which I think is May 4th. May 4th, and we'll be talking about the book, The Plundered Planet, and Phil is going to be facilitating that discussion. Okay, and we'll be at the library then. We expect to be at the library from now on. Okay. The steering committee has programs set up for most of the rest of the year. A couple of them are not confirmed yet, but most of them are. If you have ideas about programs, or if you want to get comments about what we're doing, if you'd like to be on the steering committee, we would love to have other people join the committee. The committee at the moment consists of Jean, Gladys, Lolly, Art, Phil, Shelley, Louise, Mayon, and myself. It's already a big committee, but we can take more input if anybody would like to be on it. We want to thank Louise Mayon for her endowment giving of money for us to buy some of the books that we're using. We also are happy to take donations to buy more of the books. Okay, are there any announcements? Anything we need to know? The address, if you see the responses in the newspaper to that ridiculous editorial that came out a week or so ago. You know what I'm talking about. Shelley was incensed by that.
She was.
There was a good rebuttal, a couple of rebuttals today in letters. Okay, no announcements? Any other things I've forgotten?
Do you want to say that little statement?
Yes.
I do know if you want to have
that. Yeah. No, I don't. That's what I cut off. Yeah, I got it here. The steering committee decided we needed kind of a guide for how we're going to have our conversations. Sometimes we've gotten pretty banging heads over things or talking over each other and things like that. So we said we want a wide range of views on climate change and what to do about it. We want everyone who wants to speak to be able to, so we ask that everyone share the discussion space and no one talk more than their share. Because group participants have different points of view, we ask every participant to respond to others respectfully so we can have open, productive discussions. And that's it.
Here.
The people presenting this morning, Molly sent me a bio, and this woman has done so much over so many areas. There's no way I can do it justice.
Type A personality, you can't help it. Yeah.
Can't do it justice, so I'll just say basically, she has been involved in many aspects of environmentalism and sustainability for a long, long time. She and her husband have been back to the landers since the mid-1970s. She taught at the University of Arkansas and also the University of Texas, and has done a number of other things since then. We're happy to have her presenting today. We're going to hear a lot from her. Ilana Harrison is an Energy Corps member with Applied Sustainability Center at the University of Arkansas. She's a recent graduate of Hendrix College.
This book is tremendous, and I've dubbed it, I apologize to the gentleman here, but I've dubbed it very macho book. And it's high-tech, it's power-packed, and so you kind of see why I said that. What I wanted to do is I was coming into town today, before we get into the book, I'm going to try to give you a little picture of one of the primary ideas. One of the primary ideas is as if nature mattered. So here's what happened on my way into town. We live at the headwaters of the Buffalo River, and I was going down off the mountain and was enjoying, as I have for several weeks now, the daffodils, the purple phlox, the red buds coming, the service berries that are about to go out, the dogwoods that are, the little petals are getting bigger and wider and bigger and wider. And it made me think of that phrase that comes from this book, but it made me also think, I hope you have found a piece of nature. I hope you found the peace of nature. Because when I first moved into the country, I came from the cities. I've been teaching at the universities, and I was, bang, 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 fast, fast, fast. And when I first moved into the mountains, I felt very isolated, and I didn't know what solitude was. And so now I have the great joy of having solitude be a companion. And so I hope you have found the peace of nature. And that's I know I see many men here nodding their heads after I've just said this is a macho book, but you know what I'm talking about. And I hope you found your peace in nature as well. So this big book was put out, as we were just talking about the date, by the Post-Carbon Institute. And if you're not familiar with the website, you ought to go to it. If you're an environmentalist and you're concerned with climate change, go to it, because there's wonderful things there, like I was saying prior. For example, here is their mission statement. Provides individuals, communities, businesses, and governments with the resources needed to understand and respond to the interrelated economic, energy, environmental, and equity crisis that define the 21st century. And when you hear those terms, you see how big this book is and what the Post-Carbon Institute does. Its goals are, there are 4 primary ones: build awareness and understanding, this book; foster collaboration; integrate knowledge; inspire action. Integrate knowledge, they like to use whole systems approach. It's just as an example. We offer people and communities concrete, practical, and replicable action to build resistance and manage the transition? Yes, I thought we were at transmission, but it's the transition. I bet you've been reading about transition societies and so forth. We are living in a profound inflection point, growing gap between haves and have-nots, runaway climate change, biodiversity loss, economy struggling with massive debt and unemployment levels, depleting natural resources, and the end of cheap energy. It'll be a test, won't it, to see how we manage. How can we build a more resilient society? Post-Carbon Institute wants to be a starting point for all future planning, and they need an understanding of none of our global problems can be tackled in isolation. We must focus on responses, not just solutions, and we must prepare for business as unusual. So, and we're really familiar with these, you know, and that's what you'll see throughout this book. It goes on to say momentarily, these times will test our courage, capacity, and commitment. And we hope you'll join us. So again, dedication to the big book, and this kind of goes with what I said a moment ago. For the wild creatures whose habitat is being destroyed by our rapacious energy economy, and for the children whose breathing is labored due to the pollution from fossil fuels. May a future energy economy that mirrors nature's elegance arrive soon enough to relieve their suffering. Now, we decided we'd put a disclaimer in here because we thought at one time perhaps there would be a large gathering for this. And now that the energy book was put off for at least 4 different occasions, it's kind of been an ill-fated book, and of course we're hoping that the contents of it will not be ill-fated. So we hope this information has grassroots as well as larger commitments. But we decided to put in a disclaimer saying that we are not part of Post-Carbon Institute, though because we believe in the facts of climate change, we have that tendency. So we're speaking of the book, not from ourselves in this case, other than my little quick scenario that I gave you earlier. We're going to leave out a particular chapter, I think it's chapter 5, and it's on the destruction of so much that's been going on with our current energy processes. But so that you can see the photographs in this book or get a feeling for them if you haven't looked at them, Gladys, would you play, this comes from the Energy Reader, which is the book without the photographs. And so it's got this weird music to go with it. It's less than 5 minutes. Thanks, Gladys. If you'll go to the outline that on the flash drive is called Forward. When I see these, it's a visceral response. I don't know if you have that or not. But when I see these pictures of energy sprawl, in our lifetime it's become that big. You know, those Alberta tar sands, or so many of the pictures we just saw, it's that big in our lifetime. There's no energy form that is benign. Our growth economies left the natural world degraded. The economy is overscaled, outsized, overdeveloped. State of civilization is bound to the oceans and nature itself. The arrogance of humanism is at the heart of climate change and the eco crisis, and represents delusional thinking. To understand the root cause, we must understand energy literacy. And I want to repeat something that you'll hear throughout. This book is not a book of solutions, but you'll see the directions that they want us to go in. And they're things we've all talked about. So this is the introduction by Richard Heinberg. Snake oil, remember? We did that one recently. And then I'll be getting right into energy literacy. Energy is the core of the human predicament in the 21st century. Extraction poisons the landscape, burning our energy sources changes the chemical composition of the atmosphere. Fossil fuel prices go up, causing world financial crises. We're now using extreme capture of energy and operating at the margins of technical ability. We've exceeded global energy sustainability. Population is 7 times what it was before the Industrial Revolution, yet we need 30 times more energy. Our energy infrastructure overpowers natural ecosystems, threatening the future and the species. We're coming to a crisis. It's everybody's business nowadays to know energy literacy. And so let me get right into the task of the 21st century, which is to understand sustainability and resilience, and in the case to do that, energy literacy. So what is energy? I had Art Hobson look at this, and he said, at least they talk about physics in the right way. So here's a quick, and I'm not a physicist, but here's a quick reflection. In the 19th century, physicists came up with 2 fundamental laws of energy. One, first law of thermodynamics, law of conservation. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. And the second law of thermodynamics, law of entropy. In conversion, some energy is dissipated. Energy works as it moves from higher to lower concentration. Okay, here are some of the terms. This is energy literacy that we need to know about. Net energy takes energy to produce energy. What is available after investment is the net energy, or EROI, energy returned on energy invested. The ratio changes with the technology. To know the net, you must factor production and systems costs. For example, gasoline is actually exploration, drilling, refining, transportation, infrastructure for each step. Society is depending on this inexpensive, or was, energy to keep high standards of living and growth, but faces a predicament. Must maintain with high energy fuels, but the sources are in decline. So energy, net energy, or EROI. Now here's energy density. Different fuels contain potential energy per unit weight or volume. As an example, we heat our house with geothermal, we heat our house with propane, but primarily we heat our house with wood. And the example that they give here is that an oak log will still be keeping you warm in the morning, and you use pine to have a cup of coffee. And that's the difference, and that's energy density. Coal is 2 times wood. Liquid fuels from fossil fuels are 3 times wood, and the primary challenge is renewables, which are more diffuse than fossil fuels, and how to power the transition. Okay, that's energy density. Here's embodied energy. Energy required in manufacture, maintenance, and disposal of anything. In our physical infrastructure, embodied energy is immense, and one place where we can reduce energy. Here, for example, wood has the lowest embodied energy. Plastic is times 6 by its weight. In other words, what it took to make that plastic, it were times 6 of its weight. Glass is times 16, steel times 24, aluminum, pretty modern, is times 126. Vast amount of embodied energy, along with the psychological and financial investment in current distribution system. It's a key obstacle to fundamental changes in that system. So that was embodied energy. Here's another. Energy slaves. During most of human history, energy was human muscle. Then domesticated animals, then wind, water, fossil fuels. Fossil fuels have allowed ordinary people to command the energy of kings. Modern energy economy provides power equivalent to that of vast numbers of human beings. Okay, here's the next one. Energy-fueled population growth. During most of human history, let's call that our Holocene, the last 12,000 years, population, here's a statistic. Population growth was less than 1/500th of 1%. Then farming came along, 1/50th of 1% was population growth. All human history to early 1800s it took to reach 1 billion. Then in 100 years, population doubled. Then 30 years, tripled. In 14 years from then, population was 4 billion and 5 billion in 12 years. 1999, 6 billion, 2011, 7 billion. Hockey stick, who wrote that one? Remember that book, The Hockey Stick? Energy-dense coal of the Industrial Revolution allowed the technology and industrial growth, which at the same time population growth began. So it's a false assumption that about energy not being also population growth. So energy-fueled population growth is a problem. I'm glad to see we're going to have that book, Countdown, which will be presented when is that, July, about population. Energy-fueled economic growth. World economic growth has grown slowly from Middle Ages to 1800s. Average per capita income increased only about 50%. But you know what? The Industrial Revolution occurred. Global per capita was 8 times in times 200 years. Energy consumption risen from under 20 gigajoules per person per year pre-industrial to more than 75 gigajoules in the United States. It's 300 gigajoules. Energy consumption and economic activity are a self-reinforcing loop. But what happens to economics when fossil fuels decline? Economic growth. Maintaining acceptable level of productivity, let alone growth, may be society's foremost social, political, technical, and economic challenge as we move out of the 21st and into the 22nd century. Here's another energy literacy term, peak oil and resource depletion. See, all of these are familiar. Let's hear what they have to say about it. Typical life cycle of oil or gas production is you find it, you pump it, you deplete it, and you go to the next one. Now that it's harder to find, costs go up, price determines what economically recoverable, a finite energy source, and depletion is inevitable. We know about Hubbard's peak in the 1970s. International Energy Agency says oil has been flat since 2004, and conventional oil cannot make up for accelerating demand. Energy sprawl. Those pictures we just saw were a good example of energy sprawl. Footprint of energy source, ever-increasing area devoted to energy production. Now nuclear, and I'm not promoting it, I'm telling you what the book says one way or another. Nuclear is the smallest footprint, but if you consider the whole picture, prospecting and mining, processing, nuclear waste disposal, power lines, and if it fails, a very large contaminated area. Look at Fukushima and crossing the Pacific. Renewables have a large footprint relative to energy produced, but they're only a small part of our overall energy picture. Fossil fuels, it's in a medium place because it's high density and per acre, but it's huge since it dominates. Okay, visual blight. Again, those pictures showed us a lot about visual blight. Rampant air and water pollution from fossil fuels, but it's difficult to quantify visual pollution unless you're one of those like me who loves the beauty of the earth as it is, and not when we strip mine and tar sands and so forth. Aldo Leopold, if you've read him, in his land ethic includes aesthetics, wild and intact versus degraded and despoiled. But boosters of economic growth say not 1 cent for scenery. Because to me, scenery is not just beauty in the eye of the beholder, it's all the animals, it's the eco infrastructure that's there. Okay, climate change itself. Greenhouse gas has been up, of course, since the Industrial Revolution, is now higher than in 800,000 years. And we've seen the problems. I won't say those again. But we need a global citizens movement since governments are inadequate at all levels. Energy conservation, that's one of the major propositions this book is based on, is that we need to find a way to conserve energy and curtail energy. I'll say this in a minute, a little more detail. America is 4.5% of the global population, but it consumes 20% annually of all energy production. Wasteful, and there's great potential for energy conservation and efficiency because we are wasteful. Conservation through curtailment, turn off lights when you leave the room, and efficiency, leave lights on but replace with higher efficiency LED bulbs. Supply side boosterism keeps conservation unpopular, but it costs more. America can reconsider conservation for national security, stimulate innovation, save money, draw down CO2 levels, etc. Efficiency, global energy consumption up with population growth and affluence. This is kind of hammered on over and over again. Overdeveloped USA citizen uses 2 times the amount of energy as a European for the very same lifestyle. California is a good example of what they allowed to happen. They allowed the cost to go up. People started conserving, and so it has a flat rate right now in the sense of cost. More and more people didn't use more and more energy. Okay, now moving into the second section. There are what, 6 sections? What's your second section? Are you 5 or 6?
I'm 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
Yes.
I think there's 6 sections here. So we're moving along. We're getting to the second section now, called the predicament. We need a systemic critique to head us toward fundamental changes. What are the drivers for this eco-social unraveling? Agents of destruction and growth-based economics, mass consumerism, globalization, rapacious corporate profit, unintended negative effects of technology, and human population explosion. And the consequences have become very evident. Rising social inequality, climate change, loss of beauty, pervasive destruction, things that you'll hear over and over again. Heading to the 6th largest mass extinction since the age of the dinosaurs, since 65 million years ago. There are several different